Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. Momentarily, I will be joined by Myron Welik for a discussion on reinventing yourself. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits, as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Myron, welcome to the program.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Bruce.
It is my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
My pleasure. So just quickly, I'm called the Jackhammer. I'm 71 going on 51. At 67, I reinvented myself after kind of being down and out at about 47, 48. 16 years of, it took me literally 16 years. I wish it was less. So as long as I have my health, hopefully I can continue to successfully reinvent myself.
A person needs to reinvent themselves either because they have to do it or they want to do it.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So what would the difference be in approach between those who have to reinvent themselves and those who just want to?
I think everybody, in all due respects, I don't think there's not a simple magic formula, and the two want or have to crisscross in many different ways. It's certainly not a black and white. It's very gray. I mean, for me, all I can do is share for me, and for whatever that's worth to people listening, that's great. I think the bottom line, that's why I'm here. The bottom line is, for some reason, I didn't want to surrender, consciously or unconsciously. But to be perfectly candid and transparent, I didn't sail through 16 years of being down and out relatively unscathed. I really had an emotional torment. Had suffered from severe anxiety. I mean, the effect of what happened to me took a tremendous, besides the obvious financial, it took a tremendous emotional toll on me, much more than anybody could ever comprehend. It's like when you get into trouble or get into a problem or get into an issue or things don't go well, you have no idea what it's going to be like until, unfortunately, what it's like. The same thing is the opposite of positive. So the depth of it was devastating for me. But a couple of things I did is that for some reason, I'm not exactly sure, I kept getting up every morning. I didn't sleep until 11 or 12 or 12. I'm just telling what I didn't. I never drank much, which people do, and frankly, I don't blame them sometimes with pain. I guess the pills for a while, antidepressant pills, all those kinds of nonsense, all they did was mask the issue, like anything, like alcohol, drugs, any of that stuff. And I guess at some point, Myron just realized that I was only temporary, and ultimately would take me down a path of destruction, and I'd never come back at some point. And then I realized also I'm 47, 52, 54. As the years pass, I'm not 20, 30. I don't have the luxury of time. Fortunately, also, my physical health maintained a status quo, Bruce, in terms of it didn't get disastrously worse. Mentally, I was all a mess, but physically, it didn't get disastrously worse. That would have been maybe irreconcilable because I didn't have a control over that. So whatever not nice things or bad things happen, I could control it. So I would get up, I would go out, even though I had nowhere to go, coffee shops. And the other thing I would do, I would go to a lot of networking events. And as we all know, networking events, for the most part, are inhabited by people in their 20s and 30s. So they're filled with the future. They're only optimistic. They haven't met their too many obstacles yet, or too many breakdowns, or too many falls yet. So the optimism was intoxicating. And I loved it. I never got involved in any business. I just went there to listen, to hear, and to talk. And for those couple of hours, it was like a vacation. I forgot about everything. So that helped helped give me some armor, some strength, so to speak, to keep going. And whether it was, being in Montreal, it can get cold here in the winter. So whether it was cold weather or very hot weather, it's not California or Florida. Sometimes I don't have that luxury. I kept going, and the bottom line is I kept going until one day, and many times. But to be frank, all the time I kept going is 16 years. Keep in mind, I never thought anything could happen because, like I said, some good stuff only happens to other people. Isn't that a typical comment? 16 years, enough's enough. It ain't going to happen to me, right? And this is at 66, 65, 67 years old, not 25 or 30. And then one day I go to a networking event, which I told you I went to many. And there was a young man in his 30s who had just a startup in real estate. And real estate was not on the agenda. 99% of the people who went to these events talked about technology, of course. They did not talk about real estate. They focused on some derivative, some interpretation of a technology startup or entrepreneur in that area. Most of them. He really had no place being there more than you or me, but he was there. And some people feel that somebody sent him there that I'll never know. I know it sounds very weird. It's like a movie, but he had no reason being there because it wasn't his agenda. He sat there, he listened, and it was 8 o'clock at night. He had a family. I don't know what the hell he was doing there. He really had no reason. If you saw it in a movie, you'd say, okay, in a movie it works, but not in real life. Well, he was there. I befriended him. We became close. He needed help at some point in terms of he was growing, him and his partner. Again, remember, they're in their mid-30s. They needed more money to help build, which was a good problem. I found them that. And then that led to needing, he focused on properties that were not on the market, were off market, as they're called, multiplexes, apartment buildings. I helped him find that, and I grew it from there. But it really started on like a lot of things in life, that happen is if you keep going, keep asking, keep speaking, keep talking, maybe nothing will happen, but for sure nothing will happen. But you have a chance, and that's usually how things happen by serendipity.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the first thing somebody needs to do is get control of their anxiety, make sure their head's glued on straight, and that they can function. Then getting out, which will help with the anxiety, and I totally agree with that. And then, as in the case with this real estate gentleman you just mentioned, taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, the other thing is, being in that state, one could imagine you're extraordinarily vulnerable, right, sir? So don't get tempted. I know it's easier said than done. Everything's easier said than done. But the fact is, it's not easier said than done. You have to damn well do it. It's like people starting a business and not starting. If you really want to do it, you're going to start it. I don't have any patience for people who talk about things. You either do it or don't talk about it. It doesn't matter. Fail 10 times and do it, or keep your mouth shut. There's nothing to talk about. I'm not interested. So the only way to do it is to do it and to stumble and to fall. There's no other magic, and you'll learn or you won't learn. But in my case, that's exactly it. And plus, again, I repeat, I fell down, I hit bottom, but I didn't go so far down that I couldn't come back up again, which could happen, which I guess does happen.
Sure.
Meaning that you get into stuff or you get involved in stuff where there is maybe no coming back. And I wasn't prepared to surrender. I wasn't prepared to give up. It's not over yet for me. I'm not a religious man, but it's not over for me yet. Okay, I got stuff to do. And I know this may sound almost mystical or kind of weird or like a movie, but I felt I have stuff to do, and something inside was telling me I have stuff to do if I can hang on. I know this may sound I don't know, a little overly dramatic. I guess it probably is, but that's what happened to me.
I was laughing when you said, don't talk about it, do it.
Right.
For two reasons. You remember the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Oh, very much. I love it. Great movie.
And when the guy comes into the bathroom, which was really a bathroom because there was a tub, and Eli Wallach is in there, and the one-armed man starts telling him that he's going to kill him. And just before he goes for his gun, Eli Wallach in the bathtub shoots him and has that great line that says, I think this is the exact quote, if you're going to shoot, don't talk.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely. Hold on one second, Bruce. I'll get ready. Sorry. beginning. Be careful. Come on. I'm on a podcast. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. That's the first time. Oops. That's
That's my dog, Brooklyn.
oh, okay. That happens.
Yeah,
Had that
apologize.
done before. No, I was just looking to pause the recording, but
Yeah,
you
that's
you,
okay. I'm back. I'm back. No.
you
This is my
moved
dog, Brooklyn,
faster
for
than
some
I
reason.
could. Now, I was laughing, not because of the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I used to go to networking events all the time. And I enjoyed just pick them up and let's see what the dog looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I love them. I particularly like them,
I'm going to make my
and
points.
I love them.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I
went
go
to
for
networking
business, for real estate, because I'm sociable. I like meeting people, and an opportunity has come that way. And my best opportunities in my work and just has generally come from online or offline, but online good, and meeting people that I wasn't, I had no idea existed prior to what happened. Most don't, but even now, you
Well, that's
never
how I
know.
get some of my speechwriting clients. They have
That's
no
right.
idea. I don't need a career counselor. I don't need a recruiter. Oh, but I got a story to tell.
That's
I
right.
want a TED Talk or what have you. But one of the things that I thought of was that at networking events, I've heard a lot of lawyers speak. And as you know, most networking groups, you can only have one person of one profession, but that could be also one specialty. So you can have 5 different lawyers, but one does wills and estates, one does real estate, one does this, one does that. This gentleman did international property,
Interesting.
which I personally find very interesting. And he mentioned in passing the fact that you cannot copyright or trademark an idea because it's not tangible, it's not real.
Right.
And I'm in a diner, and sitting next to me are 2 gentlemen. One has an idea, the other one is a business consultant. And the gentleman with the idea explained it to him in great detail. It had to do with engineering. I did not understand it, but I knew what he was doing.
His
I
idea.
also knew what the consultant was doing. And sure enough, he said when the gentleman was finished and he had been taking notes, he took his little pad of paper, put it in very nonchalantly into his pocket, excused himself to go to the restroom. And I looked at the guy and I said, "You just blew it. You can't get a copyright on an idea. He can go out right now, and it's probably, if he can do it on his phone, what he's doing is stealing your idea, and you won't have any legal recourse at all because an idea is not tangible."
Right.
And he said, "No, can't possibly be true." And there were 3 lawyers in the room, and they all smiled and said, "He's right. You've got no legal case at all." And one of them told him what to do, to go to the U.S. Patent Copy and Trademark Office
Right.
website and file an intent to file, something like that.
Yeah. I'm not being an engineer or a scientist of some sort. I've never really been in a position to copyright something. Okay, my ideas are, I would say, generic, but they could be. So if I come up, I just got to be first to the gate and get out there and do the best possible job, and that's how I look at it. Okay, I can't worry about generally speaking because I've never really done anything, and I don't do anything that's copyrightable. I know that. Okay, I'm not of that background. I don't pretend to. I'm not creating a new telephone. So, or telegraph. Which you guys needed it, okay? Or a way to
Better
slice
mousetrap.
bread. Yeah, that's not me. That's not who I am. I mean, I could tell you, I have a startup I'm working on now, but it's typically nothing to do with a copyright. It's the least of my issues or concerns.
No,
And at the end of the day, it's like real estate. A lot of things people can talk all they want, but they have to still make an offer, put their money where their mouth is. Okay, so nothing means nothing till it does. So it's the same thing with business. Almost anything in life. It's talk, but the most challenging part is not ideas, even though obviously that's important. It's the execution. It's a cliche, but it's true. I mean, that's really separates the men from the boys or the girls from the women. So to speak.
Mhm.
That's hard.
What my point was that I went to a networking event, heard an IP attorney talk about international property,
Right.
remembered what he said,
Right.
was able to warn that gentleman of his mistake.
Right.
It was then confirmed by the lawyers who were present. And of
Right.
course, I didn't set this up. I didn't know any of them were going to be there.
Right.
I just went in there for breakfast.
Right.
And the fact that I was able to offer him advice helped to build relationships.
Absolutely. And it was genuine advice.
So there can be a supplemental impact. You have the
Yeah.
direct impact of going to a networking advice and meeting people, and you start a relationship with someone.
Yeah, you went out of your way, Bruce. You went out of your way.
I actually didn't have to do go anywhere.
You
I
didn't
just
have to do any of it. Exactly.
turn my head to the left and say, "Excuse me, sir, I have some news for you that you're not going to like." And he wasn't a very happy camper, but he was appreciative.
I'm sure. I hope
And
so.
when he left, the lawyers started to chat amongst themselves, and basically we're saying, why don't people realize that they have an idea, keep it to themselves, or have somebody sign a break on it,
And an NDA, or
and
just go do it.
just go do it. Yeah, yeah.
Just go do it. See what happens.
But my question for you is, and you touched on it a bit, when you go to a networking event, you're easy prey for, let's call them what they are, con artists. And somebody can come over to you and say, listen, I was in your exact situation and I started to, and it's perfectly legal. And I don't know if anyone who, so I'm not bad mouthing the profession. Why don't you? I got into real estate, flipping houses, didn't have to use any money. I can teach you my secrets for a couple $1,000. I
Yeah.
became a
So,
million.
so I appreciate that what you're saying. I'm not easy prey. That's not going to happen to me. It
No,
didn't
I know
happen to
that.
me.
My question for you is this. How can you identify, besides if it's too good to be true, don't believe it?
Well, I think the first step is you have to have some people, some uh, portfolio of people you respect and trust, not say family, business, and you have to ask them. You have to run it by them, and you can't never be impulsive or like marriage or love, be necessarily jump right away necessarily, because a lot of stuff is not necessarily what it seems. It's not just applicable to business, Bruce. It's applicable to almost anything in life. You could be hoodwinked conceivably, theoretically, in anything, not necessarily just involve money. Money is the obvious one, but it's not the only one by any means. So I think the first thing is a healthy dose of skepticism is excellent. A small dose of cynicism, but a healthy dose of skepticism, and absolutely, positively run it by as many different people as you possibly can. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't smell too good, take out some cheese. It doesn't smell too good. Keep going. See what else is out there. You have to, at some point, you're going to be on your own at some point, and you have to show some kind of, even if you miss out an opportunity, because sometimes you will, you have to try your best to be as discriminative and as cautious as you possibly can. And I'm sure there's people, whether it's a professional people or business people or friends who you respect, who you can bounce it off, and they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you. I mean, otherwise, you're not. Why are you asking them? So there's a many ways to avoid it if
And
you
there
want
are people who get excited about new things.
to. Right.
They could read about it, they could meet somebody. But how, at the end of the day, if you're going to reinvent yourself, do you choose what you are going to reinvent yourself into?
Well, it's a good question. Sometimes it chooses you. So I don't know if you always choose yourself. Like it chose me in this case. I've never been in real estate. So I think like let me give you another analogy, which I read a lot of fiction, and I guarantee you, a lot of people who write the best, Stephen King included, the most genius, talented fiction writers do not know the journey from beginning to end right away.
True.
But they do not know it. I guarantee you, they can't know it. They can
Right.
outline, and outline and outline. It's not 265 pages. But it takes a life, and it does. You have to do it to understand that. I know it sounds mystical and magical, but Mr. King is right. It does take a life of its own at some point once you start the road. It's like if you agree to travel somewhere and you don't necessarily have an optimal destination, you are going to figure out where you want to go as more you travel because you don't know. So writing a book and it's the same thing with reinventing to some extent. I think pragmatically, you probably talk to as many people as you can, look at your expertise, look at your skills, look at what you can do, look at what you need to survive financially, look at all those variables, and talk to and meet, and who you are, what you are, and talk to as many different peoples. And invariably, if you get enough of a consensus and talk to enough people, some of the feedbacks be valuable, some of it won't, but a lot of it will. And ultimately, you could decide. But it's always great to have a lot of different opinions to help you decide because it gets rid of a lot of the seaweed, I like to say. And I think you like I did. I think miracles are miracles. You may be able to. You'll figure it out. It'll come. It'll come. It's when you focus too hard on it, which I did, and you think every day. It's like writing a book or anything else. It doesn't happen. And one more story I'll tell you for quickly. There's
Go ahead.
another famous author, and she's written many books. I just read about her, and she was out of a story. Out of a story. Okay, she couldn't figure it out. Which is a challenge. She writes fiction. She writes good stories with people like, and she's good at what she does, no question. But you need a good story for people to read because ultimately you want to sell books, which she does. That's the bottom line. So in most cases, so she walked around for a month or 2 months. Eventually, believe it or not, she couldn't figure out what to do. She looks up at a house and she sees the house where there's a lot of stuff there. It's like hoarders live in there. Okay, so she eventually came up with the idea because the house we lived in. She wrote a book. She created a whole story out of it, which, she built it up because she knows how to do that magic. That's her talent and her skill. And she created from a little concept visually. That's how things happen. A whole story. It's called The House We Lived In. It's a book out there. It's a fiction book. It's a very interesting book. And why people go back and what happens and all that. But that's how she thought about the idea. So even Steve Jobs said, you don't have to be Elon Musk to think, be creative. Be creative, coming up with ideas. It's being out there, talking, getting to people. You don't have to be Pablo Picasso. Far from it. Okay, things come and happen from the most serendipitous way.
Myron, I want to share your contact information with our viewers.
Right, my pleasure.
We'll ask you one final question. Is there anything that I did not ask you that you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
Yeah, one of my things all my life, I've been a strategic partnership expert. I put together Heidi, Klum, and New Balance. I've worked with Madison Square Garden, Radio City Music Hall, but I've done it the old school way: calls and cold calls, cold emails, where you get the shivers every time you have anxiety attacks. So we're doing this little startup called I Want to Grow, and basically what it's be, if you can imagine Tinder for business, where you have an access to a database theoretically, where I would list thousands of like-minded decision-maker warm introductions, contact names in your industry that you could reach out to and explore a potential strategic partnerships. It's a way of democratizing the search for strategic partnerships. For a nominal fee a month, anybody who's the power of strategic partnerships are phenomenal. But most people do not have one, do not shy away, do not know where to start, do not know how to start, and they certainly aren't going to cold call or cold email. That's just one of the scariest things, like talking to 10 million people. So this is a way of democratizing the search. And eventually, if there's enough people on it, hopefully on it, like you or I, hypothetically, if I had a small flower shop, I can go on it and I would see hundreds or thousands of potential people who sell to the same kind of people, not flower shop, that I would sell to, which could be weddings, events, whatever it could be. And also, I don't know what I don't know, right? I don't know who's out there because I really have no way of navigating and finding it out. So that's the other thing I wanted to share.
Well, Myron, I thank you very much. You have provided one thing for certain. Excuse me, a great deal of food for thought. I appreciate it, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. So I thank
It's an
you.
honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Bruce.
My pleasure. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.